Part 1. I never imagined that the most painful day of my life wouldn't be the day my wife died, but the day my daughter told me she was ashamed to call me her father. It happened 3 weeks before her wedding. I still remember the exact moment. I was sitting at the small dining table in my apartment, sorting through old documents, bank papers, wedding expenses, things a father does quietly without asking for credit. The phone rang, and her name lit up the screen. "Dad," she said. Her voice sounded tight, controlled, like she had rehearsed what she was about to say. I smiled anyway. "Hey, sweetheart. Everything okay with the wedding plans?" There was a pause, a long one. Then she said, "We need to talk. About you." That word hit harder than it should have. She came over that evening, dressed well, confident, polished. Nothing like the little girl who used to cling to my leg when thunderstorms scared her. She didn't sit down. She stood near the window, arms crossed, eyes avoiding mine. "My fiancé's family is very traditional," she began. I nodded, already uneasy. They care a lot about image, status, background. Another pause. "And I don't think it would be appropriate for you to be introduced as my father during the wedding." I laughed, not because it was funny, because my brain refused to accept what she meant. "What do you mean?" I asked. "I'm your father." She swallowed. "Biologically, yes. But I'd rather people not focus on that." The room felt smaller, hotter. She finally looked at me. Her eyes weren't cruel. They were embarrassed. "You live alone. You don't have a big career. You don't fit into the kind of family I'm marrying into." Her voice cracked. "I don't want questions. I don't want whispers." I felt something inside me tear, slowly, quietly. "So what are you saying?" I asked. She exhaled. "I was thinking, maybe you could attend as a distant relative, or just sit quietly. No speeches, no walking me down the aisle. And please, don't introduce yourself as my father." Silence filled the room. I thought about the nights I stayed awake when she was sick, the second job I took after her mother died, the birthdays I never missed, the dreams I buried so she could chase hers. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I just asked one question. "Are you ashamed of me?" Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't deny it. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I just want one perfect day." That night, after she left, I sat alone in the dark. I didn't cry. I couldn't. My chest felt hollow, like something essential had been removed. But what she didn't know, what no one knew, was that the life she was ashamed of was a lie I had been living to protect her, and the truth about who I really was had the power to destroy her wedding, or save it. Part 2. After that night, I didn't call her, not because I was angry, but because I was afraid that if I heard her voice again, I'd beg. And a father should never have to beg his own child to acknowledge him. Days passed, then a week. Wedding preparations continued without me. Invitations were sent. Venues were booked. I learned everything through mutual relatives or social media posts. I pretended not to see. And then, one afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. "Mr. Harris?" A calm male voice asked. "Yes." "This is Daniel." Your daughter's fiancé. I almost hung up, but something in his tone stopped me. He asked if we could meet. Just for coffee, he said. There are things I need to understand. We met at a quiet cafe across town. He arrived in a tailored suit, confident, polite, the kind of man who belonged in the world my daughter now lived in. I hope I'm not crossing a line, he began. But I feel like there's a story here no one's telling me. I said nothing. She avoids talking about you, he continued. When she does, it's vague, almost rehearsed. He hesitated. She said you struggled, that you never really recovered after her mother died. I smiled faintly. That's one way to put it. He leaned forward. Were you ever involved in something illegal? There it was. I laughed softly. No, but I did make choices people wouldn't understand. He studied me carefully. Then why is she so desperate to hide you? I looked at my hands. Old, scarred, tired. Because I taught her how to survive, I said, not how to show off. I didn't tell him the truth. Not yet. That night, alone in my apartment, I opened a locked drawer I hadn't touched in years. Inside were documents, certificates, letters, photographs, proof of a life I erased the moment my wife died. I used to be someone important, respected, powerful, even. But when my daughter was 12, she overheard a conversation she was never meant to hear. Men arguing. My name spoken with fear. Her mother crying. That was the night she stopped sleeping peacefully. So I walked away from everything. I changed jobs. I disappeared from that world. I let people believe I failed because it was easier then, letting my daughter grow up afraid of who her father really was. The next day, she showed up at my door unannounced. Her eyes were red, exhausted. Daniel met you, she said flatly. Yes. She clenched her fists. Why can't you just stay in the background? Why do you make everything complicated? I stood up slowly. I didn't ask for this, I said. You did. She looked away. I'm scared. Of me? I asked. She nodded. And that hurt more than the shame. I don't want your past touching my future, she whispered. I just want a clean beginning. I took a deep breath. You don't get a clean beginning, I said quietly. You get the truth, or you get a lie that will follow you forever. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and froze. What is it? I asked. They're doing a background check, she said. Daniel's family. On you. The room went silent, because I knew exactly what they were going to find. And once they did, there would be no hiding who her father really was. Part 3. The background check took 3 days. 3 days where I barely slept. 3 days where every knock at my door sounded like the past coming back to collect its debt. On the 4th day, Daniel called. I need to see you, he said. No small talk this time. Now. We met in the same cafe, but the atmosphere was different. His suit was gone. His confidence too. He looked shaken. They found records, he said quietly. Not criminal, but sealed. Government-level sealed. I didn't react. You worked for a private security firm tied to federal operations, he continued. Risk assessment. Crisis containment. Names redacted. Missions classified. He leaned back, stunned. That's not a failed life, Mr. Harris. No, I said. It's a buried one. He rubbed his temples. Why would she believe you were just struggling? Because I needed her to, I replied. He looked at me for a long moment. She thinks you're dangerous. I was, I said honestly, to people who deserved it. That night, my daughter came over again. This time, she sat down. They know, she said, Daniel's parents, about your work. I nodded. They think you're unstable, she added, that you might bring attention, risk. I finally looked her straight in the eyes. Do you think that? She hesitated. That hesitation said everything. I remember things, she said suddenly. Men outside the house. Phones ringing late at night. Mom crying. Her voice cracked. I remember being scared of you. I closed my eyes. I wasn't scary, I said softly. I was scared. Of losing you. She shook her head. Then why didn't you explain? Because you were a child, I replied. And children don't deserve the weight of their parents' shadows. Silence. Then she asked the question I knew was coming. Is there anything you haven't told me? I stood up and walked to the drawer, the locked one. I placed the contents on the table, documents, photos, medals, a letter stamped confidential. Her hands trembled as she picked them up. You gave all this up, she whispered. Yes. For me. Yes. Tears fell onto the papers. And now, she said quietly, they want you to sign a waiver, saying you won't speak, won't attend publicly, won't be acknowledged. I felt something harden inside me. I've spent my whole life being invisible, I said. I won't do it at your wedding. Her voice broke. Then don't come. The words hung between us, final, brutal. I nodded once. Okay. She froze. That's it. That's it. She left without looking back. 2 nights later, Daniel showed up alone. They're pressuring her, he said. Hard. They want control. And they're using you as leverage. I stared out the window. And what do you want? He hesitated. I want to marry her, but not at the cost of who she becomes. The wedding was 5 days away. And then my phone rang. An unfamiliar number. This is Agent Miller, a voice said. Your past has resurfaced. We need your cooperation. I closed my eyes, because I knew what they were about to ask, and I knew that my answer would change my daughter's wedding forever. End of Part 3. Part 4. Agent Miller didn't waste time. We need you to testify, he said. Not in court. Quietly. Off the record. I leaned against the kitchen counter, phone pressed to my ear. Testify about what? An operation from 15 years ago, he replied. One that never officially existed. My grip tightened. There's an internal investigation, he continued. Someone high up is trying to rewrite history. Your name came up as a loose end. I laughed bitterly. I erased myself. That wasn't enough. Apparently not, he said. And if you don't cooperate, certain sealed records may become unsealed. I didn't need him to explain what that meant. My daughter's wedding. Her new family. the carefully polished image she was desperate to protect. If I help you, I asked, what happens to my family? A pause. We can keep your involvement classified, Miller said. But once this moves forward, rumors travel, especially in powerful circles. After the call ended, I stood there for a long time, staring at nothing. I had spent years protecting my daughter from my past. Now my past was demanding payment. The next morning, she called me. Not angry. Not cold. Tired. They're saying the wedding might be postponed, she said quietly. Daniel's parents are panicking. They think there will be attention. Media. Questions. I'm sorry, I said. She laughed softly. You always say that, even when none of this is your fault. There was a long silence between us, different from before. Less hostile. More fragile. Dad, she said, hesitating on the word like it burned. If all this comes out, were you really a bad man? I swallowed. I did bad things, I admitted. So you wouldn't have to. She exhaled shakily. I don't know how to carry that. You're not supposed to, I said. That was my job. That evening, Daniel came over with her. Together. We made a decision, he said. My daughter looked at me, eyes glassy but steady. I told them the truth, that I won't marry into a family that's ashamed of where I come from. I felt something crack inside my chest. They gave me an ultimatum, she continued. Distance myself from you, or walk away. And? I asked. She reached for my hand. I chose you. For the first time in weeks, she didn't look embarrassed. She looked like my daughter again. But relief didn't last long. Because an hour later, Agent Miller called back. They're accelerating the timeline, he said. We need your statement tomorrow. Tomorrow, the same day as the rehearsal dinner. If I cooperated, my past would resurface, quietly but permanently. If I refused, they would expose everything publicly. I looked at my daughter, laughing softly with Daniel in the other room. I had one choice left. Be silent, or finally tell the truth, no matter what it cost. And either way, the wedding would never be the same. End of part 4. All right. Part 5. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the edge of my bed, watching the city lights flicker through the window, knowing that by sunrise, the life I had carefully erased might come rushing back. At 6:14 a.m., I made my decision. I called Agent Miller. I'll cooperate, I said, but on my terms. He was silent for a moment. Explain. No media. No leaks. No vague threats hanging over my family, I said. And my daughter's wedding stays untouched. Another pause. Longer this time. We can't promise perfect silence, he admitted. But we can contain it. That's the best you're getting, I replied. 2 hours later, I was sitting in a nondescript government office, signing documents I hadn't seen in over a decade. Names, dates, operations blurred together, but the weight of them didn't. When it was done, Agent Miller looked at me and said, You saved a lot of people back then. I know, I answered, but I lost myself. By the time I got home, my daughter was waiting outside my apartment. You look different, she said. Lighter, I replied. She hesitated. Daniel told me you were meeting someone. I nodded. It's handled. She studied my face. Are we safe? I met her eyes. Yes. For the first time since she was a child, she hugged me without pulling away. The rehearsal dinner that evening was tense. I wasn't announced. I wasn't hidden either. I existed in an uncomfortable middle ground, noticed, whispered about, but present. Daniel's parents were polite, too polite, until his mother leaned in and asked, "So, what exactly did you do for a living?" I smiled. I made sure other people could sleep peacefully. She didn't ask another question. Later that night, my daughter found me standing alone outside the venue. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Tomorrow feels big." I placed my hand over hers. "It's supposed to." She swallowed. "Will you walk me down the aisle?" The question hit me harder than any threat ever had. "Yes," I said, without hesitation. Tears filled her eyes. "As my father." The wedding day arrived faster than I expected. The church was full, elegant, controlled. As the music started, I stood beside my daughter, my arm linked with hers. I could feel eyes on us, judging, measuring. Halfway down the aisle, I noticed a man in the back, suit, posture too rigid to be a guest. Agent Miller. He caught my eye and gave a subtle nod. The past hadn't disappeared. It was watching, waiting. And as I handed my daughter over to the man she loved, I realized something. No matter what came next, I was no longer invisible. End of Part 5. Part 6. The ceremony ended without interruption. No agents stormed in. No whispers turned into chaos. For a brief moment, I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, the past had finally let me go. I was wrong. The reception hall buzzed with polite laughter and clinking glasses when Daniel's father stepped up to the microphone. He was a man used to control, boardrooms, influence, silence. "I'd like to say a few words," he announced, smiling thinly. My daughter squeezed my hand under the table. I felt the tension in her fingers. "Families are built on honesty," he continued. "And today, as we welcome a new member into ours, I believe it's important that nothing remains misunderstood." My chest tightened. He looked directly at me. "There have been concerns," he said, carefully choosing each word, "about our bride's father, about his past, his associations." A murmur rippled through the room. My daughter started to stand. I gently stopped her. "I'll handle this," I whispered. I rose slowly, every eye in the room following me. "You're right," I said calmly. "There has been misunderstanding." The room fell silent. For years, I allowed people to believe I was less than I was, I continued. Not because I was ashamed, but because someone else deserved peace. I looked at my daughter. She deserved a childhood free of fear. Daniel's father frowned. "Are you admitting to something?" "Yes," I replied. "To sacrifice." I reached into my jacket and pulled out a single document, sanitized, approved, harmless to anyone but revealing enough. "I served this country in operations. That don't come with parades or press releases," I said. And I walked away when my family needed me more than duty did. The room was dead quiet. "I am not dangerous," I added, "but I am loyal, and I will never apologize for choosing my daughter over power." Daniel stood up beside his wife. "This man raised the woman I love," he said firmly. And if that makes anyone uncomfortable, that's their problem. My daughter stepped forward, voice shaking but strong. This is my father, she said, and I'm proud of him. Something shifted in the room. The whispers stopped. Later that night, Agent Miller approached me near the exit. It's done, he said quietly. The investigation is closed. Your name stays sealed. I exhaled, a breath I felt like I'd been holding for 15 years. As the guests left and the lights dimmed, my daughter hugged me tightly. I was ashamed, she whispered. Not of you, but of my fear. I kissed her forehead. Fear doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. As I walked out into the night, alone but lighter than ever, I realized something profound. I didn't need redemption. I had already earned it. The moment my daughter called me father without hesitation. End of part 6. Story complete.